Hi, my name's Hugh Morgan, and I'm a photographer based in Toronto, Ontario. And I'd like to issue a 7-day COVID-19 photographic challenge based around the work of one of my teachers and mentors, Andrei Masachevsky. The subject matter is going to be VIP, or Very Interesting Potato. Andrei is a Canadian photographer, lives in the little town of Yarker, Ontario, which is just outside of Kingston. He teaches at the Haliburton School of Arts and Design, and he exhibits internationally. And he has many great series of work on his website, and you can go look it up. I'll leave the link down below the video on YouTube. Today's focus, though, is one of Andrei's best series, in my opinion. It's very clever, and it's called VIP, or Very Interesting Potato. And on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see an example. This is a potato by the name of Teofilo Tutu II, and as you can see, he uses wonderful light to illustrate all the great details on this potato. In fact, from one of his artist statements, I extracted, why is it that he chose potatoes as a subject? And he says, well, it's a study of form. It's a collection of diverse shapes and textures, and in this case, potatoes. It gives him the freedom to look at the work in an abstract way, and it kind of gives him a way to get around all sorts of context. It's just a potato against a plain background. What drew him to potatoes was their diversity. You can imagine all the different shapes and sizes and textures and so on. And he chose to make them portraits, and you can see, I'll show you some examples later on. He lights them just as he would light a human face. He used a large format camera and used that to bring out all the details, and he printed them very large. In our case, we're going to limit it to just electronic social media images. But again, you don't have to worry. Just use a phone or a DSLR, anything that you've got. You'll get plenty of detail out of your potato with a modern phone technology. He shot in black and white, but don't feel obliged to follow his example. I'm sure color would do just as fine. So things to look for in some of Andrei's images. First of all, the direction of the light. He has a look at every potato, and he brings out all the subtle details of the potato with the light that he chooses. And I'll go through that in a minute when I show you some of his examples. Look at the intensity of light, the way he uses the high intensity to illustrate the details, and then he uses shadows to give it contrast. You also look at the brightness of the background. He uses his lights in such a way that they spill onto the background in different ways to give different gradations of background for contrast with the subject. And look for the details. He has a look at every potato, figures out what it is that he wants to accomplish, and that's what he uses his lights to bring out. So here are three examples. On the left-hand side, you've got a lovely round face of a potato with some very nice craters in the middle. And you can see that Andrei's chosen a black background. He's shielded the background from all his lights, and he's pretty much focused all the light in sort of the middle upper right part of the potato where all the great detail is. In the middle, you've got something that looks like an alien shape, a couple of weird eyes, a nose, and a mouth. He's chosen this time to put it against a white background for a little bit more contrast, because the potato itself is a bit gray. And he's chosen a light from the top that brings out all the great pockmarks on that face and gives each one a little bit of shadow just to bring out the detail. On the right hand side, you've got one that looks a little bit like an asteroid or something, where you've got craters on it, and he's chosen to light it from the side. So you've got bright light on the left hand side and shadow on the right. And if you look at the background's the exact opposite. So the dark potato side is on a brighter background, and the light potato side is on a darker background. So a very clever use of light and shadow. So here are three other images. On the left hand side, you see a kind of a multi-lobe potato, very interesting shape. Here he's chosen a kind of a middle gray background, and he's lit the potato from the top, so you can see the light shining on the top of the top lobe and the bottom lobe. In the middle, you've got this wonderful looking potato with seemingly hair, kind of weird hair, and look at all the wrinkles and stuff on the bottom. And in the background, you've got sort of a lighter gray background circling the potato with some darker vignetting in the corners. And then on the right hand side, again, this one looks like the wind is blowing its hair out to the right hand side, and he's chosen to have a nice gradation on the background with lighter gray on the left and darker gray on the right, with light shining not only on the top of the potato but also lighting up the hair strands on the right hand side. So this illustrates a lot, what you can do with light, just a little bit of lighting. And I've seen Andre's studio, and he uses kind of ad hoc flashlights and stuff like that. He doesn't have a big fancy get up with thousands of dollars of lights. He is very clever about using what he has in his studio. So you can do the same thing. This is the sign for the week. First of all, find a VIP. Find a very interesting potato in your cupboard, mount it on a fork, and then attach that fork to some sort of an improvised stand. If you've got a music stand or a light, a lamp that you could repurpose for a stand. The stand is not going to be in your photograph, so it doesn't have to be pretty or anything. You could use elastic or duct tape or a clamp or something to attach your fork to your stand. Then study the features of your potato and look at what's interesting about it, what the shape is. Figure out what needs to be in light, what needs to be in shadow, and then grab some lighting gear. This could vary from a window to a reading light to a couple of LED flashlights. Doesn't have to be fancy. Again, rig them up on some sort of stand and light up the best features of your potato, and put it against a plain background and see how your lights cast light on the background, and make sure that you choose the light on your background very carefully. And then grab some shots with your phone or your camera, whatever you've got to hand, and then select the best one, and that will be your challenge entry. So if you want to attach it to the comments on the YouTube channel, just go ahead. Don't forget to give your subject an interesting name. I forgot to mention that Andre does that. He selects a name out of thin air that seems to fit the shape and character of the potato and gives it a little bit of pizzazz. So just to anticipate some frequently asked questions, what if you don't have a potato in the house? Well, any veggie will do, anything that looks interesting and has some features that you can bring up with some lighting. How do I mount my subject? I think we talked about this. Stick a fork in it. The fork will be in the picture, but then improvise a stand, an old light stand, music stand, whatever you've got lying around the house. Do you need fancy lights? Certainly not. I mean, everybody has windows. We got flashlights around the house, reading lights. There are all sorts of lights that you can use to give your potato just the right amount of light to emphasize its best features. Does your background need to be plain? And I think the answer is probably yes. I mean, you're really looking at how the light is cast on the background. So a nice plain gray or white wall would be perfect. Do you need a fancy DSLR or mirrorless camera? Absolutely not. Your phone, phones these days are marvelous pieces of technology, and it'll do just fine. Just make sure you get up nice and close to your potato so that we don't get a lot of extraneous things in the background. And does your photo need to be in black and white like Andre's? I think the answer to that is not really. Color would be just fine. No need to convert. You can if you like. If you want to be a little bit closer to Andre's, the spirit of Andre's work, go ahead and convert it to black and white, but I don't think you really need to. So that's it for this week. 7 days hence. We'll go on to another challenge hopefully, but in the meantime, go to work on your very interesting potato and have a lot of fun with it.